Hey there, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading, wanting to thank you for stopping by to watch this interview and also make it clear to you that this is not a paid-for promotion. I collect no compensation for the interviews I do here. These companies have been identified as opportunities for investment that could provide an above average return on our investment. This is our opportunity to get to know management, to understand the vision for the company, the strategy they plan to implement, and execute to achieve that vision for the company. So if you learn anything here today and you enjoyed the interview, please do us a favor and subscribe to the Alpha Wolf Trading YouTube channel. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with another CEO interview. And actually I met this gentleman probably about, I don't know, I want to say maybe a year ago, 6 to 8 months ago. Arjan, and it's Haverhals, right? And that
Correct.
is Milestone Scientific. That is the CEO that took over about 2 years ago. And I thought he had a very compelling story then. However, the overall market climate has, for the small cap, micro cap, and just biotech industry in general, has not been a lot of fun over the last 14, 15 months. But I don't think that has anything to do with this company and the way they are executing. And I think you have a new focus, new strategy that is much broader than where the company was focused before. I want to, first of all, thank you for coming in and telling us a story about, but I'd like to get some background on you and how you got here and why you took the position of CEO at Milestone.
Well, thank you for having me, Tim. And a pleasure of meeting everybody. So why I got here and why I took the position, long story short, I've been in the medical and the dental industry for more than 30 years. Different type of companies in the healthcare sector, as well in the dental sector, capital equipment, medicaments, catheters, disposables, consumables, you name it. And both in Europe, lived in several countries in Europe, and then moved about 12 years ago to the United States, where I was working for a dental implant company called Straumann. And then after a certain period of time, I decided I wanted to have the fun back in my daily working environment. I'm not saying that it was boring in the previous companies, not at all, but I felt it was time to, be at the helm. That was always my ambition, to be at the helm of a company. And I came in contact with the owner and the founder of Milestone Scientific, which was Leonard Otzer. I was thrilled and excited about the technology, the portfolio, in particular the need in the marketplace, but more importantly, the opportunity to solve many of the problems that are associated with either local anesthetics in dentistry, as well as the associated risk factors, that are taking place in epidural anesthesia during labor and delivery. And for me, it is always important. My motivation always is to change people's life and to increase quality of life for patients. And I think there's nothing more beautiful of doing that day in, day out, in combination with the work and my position I have for this company.
So, look, you say something like that, it's difficult to discredit that, right? I mean, that is a good feeling, better quality of life, right? Making people's lives better. That's pretty important stuff, in my opinion, right? So let's talk about exactly what it is that Milestone does, the product that they offer, and where you see potential opportunity for growth in the next 6 to 12 months, in the next 6 years, right?
Absolutely. So we have one technology, which is a patented technology called dynamic pressure sensing technology that is applied to two market segments. So we have a dental business and we have a medical business. In the dental business, well, let me ask you the question. Do you like to go to the dentist?
No.
No. So you're not alone. There are about 40 million people in the United States that are dental phobic. That means that they have fear to go to the dental office, and research shows actually that they are afraid of getting a dental injection. And normally what happens is, you get an injection, the dentist says, don't worry, you will feel something. If it doesn't work, I will come back in 10 minutes. And then guess what? He will say to you, and I will give you a second one. And that's exactly not what you would like to hear as a patient, in a very uncomfortable position in a dental chair. Now, why I tell you this story is that with our technology, we are able to inject the drug and control the flow rate of the local anesthetic in the patient. And that means that you inject the medicament, in this case, a local anesthetic, below the patient pain threshold. And that results in virtually no pain, no comfort, no discomfort, and no side effects like numbness. Because normally, if you go to the dentist and you do a crown, you cannot drink coffee or tea for the next 4 or 5 hours, and you have this weird feeling in your face and around your lips. And that is something that is not occurring with our technology. So we've been in the dental field for about 2 decades, a little bit more than 2 decades. We have done more than 100 million procedures with the technology, an installed base of more than 20,000 units worldwide.
So let me back up for a second. So I want to emphasize this again. So you're saying if I go in to get my crown or my root canal and I get my injection, and then for the next, I get that procedure done, and then for the next, 3 hours, I'm drooling on myself and I can't drink anything because I got that numbness all the way. Right. And you actually bite your own tongue at times. Not that I've ever done
Absolutely.
that, but I have done that. You do not have that effect from your.
That's correct. That's correct. And in particular, you mentioned biting your tongue. In particular for children in pediatric dentistry, they do not have that awareness, right? So they bite their tongue or they bite their lips, bleeding lips, all type of adverse events or nasty experiences for the children, right? Or teenagers. It doesn't matter the age that the patient is in. But to your point, absolutely. Without technology, you avoid all those adverse events, I would call it, as you mentioned. No facial numbness, no lip numbness, no weird feeling in your tongue. And more importantly, it's a very efficient methodology for the dentist because
they're using
in as little as 60 seconds, he can start his procedure after the injection. So it's a gain for him as well.
And he's using less, I would think, of whatever he's using to numb you, right? Is he using less of that?
I'm not making that claim,
right?
But definitely we know that he will use less anesthesia needed than when you would do an handheld injection.
Because of the accuracy of where you're placing it.
The accuracy of where you're placing it, the immediate onset of the anesthesia, and the increased efficiency. Because, let's not forget one thing. The main competition in all of this is the hypodermic syringe out of 1860. So, dentists today and doctors today still use a technology that was invented in the 1800s. Later in the early 1900s, it was presented in a different way. In medicine, it's called the loss of resistance technique. But why would you use in this technology era that we are living in, why do we still use an analog concept where digital technology is available?
You know, it's funny because I came across a company that actually came out with this testing, it's this testing box, I guess, for identifying, like, for animals. Because I have a dog that had a UTI infection, right? So I went down to the vet, and then they take the sample, and then they send that out to the lab, and that takes 3 days to get the results. And come to find out, I could have done a deeper dive of the sample, but I was not offered that. I got a prescription. I came, but it didn't work. Had to go back, do it again. And there's this piece of equipment that actually can process and identify what actual what do you call it? The prescription would work for my dog in 3 hours, right? And the machine is 25 grand. And my vet doesn't have that. It cost me, it took me 3 trips to get that problem resolved, right? And I have to ask myself why. And it goes just to what you bring up, because the technologies are there to make us more efficient, right?
Sure.
And give the customer a better experience. Why do they not have these things? I mean, it's 25 grand. I get the results in 3 hours, and I get the right prescription the first time. Is it because being efficient doesn't make them as much money? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's maybe my question is, do we want to stay inefficient because we can't make as much money by having them come back 3 times, right?
Yeah, no, it's a very fair question. And, for me, I will turn it around and come with a different approach. What we should not forget, what always happens with technologies, it might require a change of mindset. So the ability to change. So for example, in our case, what we ask the dentist to do is not using the technology or the needle that he has been trained and educated at, and the medical clinician as well. So the risk is always for companies with new technologies that they introduce it and you step on the toe of the dentist or the medical professional. Now, that's not what we are doing. On the contrary, we're saying, you do what you've been educated at, but there is an additional technology that can make it more efficient. So it can save you time, it can reduce your cost. And in particular in dentistry, we have all the facts that by using our technology, you can increase your revenues easily up to $150,000 or more when you use our technology, because your patient acceptance is going to be increased. Because the patients, we've done the survey, right, with patients. They love the technology. They prefer it above the normal handheld syringe. They make verbal promotion marketing to their family and other people. They share it with their friends. They love the dentist. I don't want to, step on the toes of dentists, but even you are afraid of the dentist. So by definition, it means that the dentist is never liked by patient because there is that fear. So in a way, we help to change the profile and change the mindset of the patients as well, to, instead of hating the dentist, of liking the dentist, and there's no fear and they will come back. It's the same. Research shows that, depending from practice, that up to 25% of the second appointment is canceled. So when a patient comes into a dental office, and then the dentist will say, okay, this is what we have to do. You have to make an appointment for next week. We will prep your teeth because you need a new crown. Depended again from practice to practice, but up to 25% of that second appointment can be canceled. Now, 25% is a lot. It's a loss of revenue to the dentist. So historically, the company, of course, for the right reasons, always positioned in dental business our products from a safety, efficiency, and comfort point of view. But what we brought into the equation also is what we call helping the dentist to increase their bottom line.
Right. Right. And to me, you're helping them increase their bottom line. But I can tell you right now that if I go to the dentist and I get a crown or I get a root canal, go through that thing, and I don't have the numbness and all that stuff for 3 hours after, I'm going to tell everybody. If I felt zero pain and I did not have to deal with the whole numbness thing after that, that would be so huge to me. I would tell everybody, you got to go to this guy, because that's, to me, is a no-brainer, right?
Absolutely.
And the fact that this exists kind of irritates me, because I'm thinking about the dentist that I have now, right? I had a little bout where I went through horrible. It had a root that like died in my tooth. It was the most painful thing I've ever been through in my life. But it happened on a Friday, so like they were closed for the weekend. I had to suffer through it through the weekend, but it was unbelievable. And to think that this actually exists and not him not having it is just doesn't make sense to me. I mean,
but I think there's also a reason for it, and then you go back to the history of the company, right? Historically, there was not necessarily enough working capital to do the things that we can currently do. If you look back many years ago, all the money that was earned in the dental business was invested in the medical business. And I think the major, and that implies immediately that you do not have enough resources available, both from a human capital to a working capital point of view. So in a way, you can just, address the tip of the iceberg, so to say. And that has changed dramatically 2 years ago, where the board decided in early 2020 that they wanted to raise capital for the company, to bring the company in particular through that period in 2020 when COVID hit, right? And the board had that objective to provide enough cash and cash equivalents to the company to have a runway of about 2 years. So that resulted in 2 financial rounds. I think we had about 19.5 million that was sort of raised. And then by the end of 2020, we had about $14.5 million cash at hand. And still by the end of 2021, we still had $14.8 million cash at hand. So, of course, in that year 2021, definitely there was an exercise of warrants and options that brought in another 3.7 million in the company. But my point is just there was more available cash at hand. We were able to manage our cost structure pretty well. We didn't have a high burn rate quarter over quarter. There was a contribution of the warrants exercise and options, and that gave us then, in 2020 and 21, a very good situation that we had been able to master those 2 years. That triggered it also for me in 2021 to start investing in building up the medical team, the medical sales team, and to change also the strategy in the medical sector, not to be dependent only in labor and delivery, but also going into other areas. And we can discuss that later on if you want to, because I think it's important to understand what the changes are that we have been implementing for the company to ensure future growth and success of the company.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So we've got the. I do want to ask one question on the dental procedure, right? So I'm just thinking about my dentist who's got all these different rooms, right? So would you need to have one of these units in every single room? Like, because sometimes the dentist doesn't even do the anesthesia. Sometimes it's the nurse, right? So
Nurse or the hygienist,
yeah,
depending on the state you're in. Yeah.
right. So I mean, do they need one for every room? And then how much does a unit cost the dentist on
Yeah.
average?
For me, I would say the more the better, right? But seriously, you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head. If he has 3 or 4 operatory rooms, then it would be beneficial for him to have 4 of these 4 instruments, right? So we use the razor blade model. So the capital equipment, the instrument, the end user price is about $2,995, and dependent on the distributor, they will use discounts. So let's say everything between $2,700 and $3,000. That's sort of the price range of the instrument, which I believe is a rather low cost if you compare it to other technologies and instruments like CBCTs or intraoral scanners that dentists are using. And then, of course, every time he needs to use a sterile set of consumables to be used for each patient. That is sold for a box of 50 to the dentist at around $140. So divided by 50, it's about $2.50 or $2.10 for each patient. Now, the beauty also is that in some of the dentists, they increase their fees because they want to have the cost back. And some of the dentists, in dentistry, you can increase your fee if you follow 3 criteria. You have to invest in new technology. It has to come with an individual sterile consumable for single patient use. And you have to take some medication. All those 3 criteria are fulfilled with our technology offering, right? So that gives him the opportunity to recover that $2.10 back if he would just increase, his fee by $15, for example, or $10. So instead of the dentist opening the pouch and thinking, oh, this is costing me $2.10, I always say he has to open more pouches every time, because the more times that he opens the pouch and the more time he is going to use it, he's going to increase our revenue.
Right.
So that's an additional revenue stream based on the advantages that I already touched upon earlier.
And if it's a better customer experience,
Absolutely.
I mean, what is that worth? Right.
Yes.
I mean, what is that worth? What is word of mouth worth? Right. For me to go out and say, man, this guy is the most, I didn't feel anything. I mean, it was,
I can share you a story with a dentist. He lives in an area, and he always tells me the story, in an area of about 3 square miles. There are 27 dental offices, and he can grow his business by 25% year over year. Because of your technology. If I wouldn't have that, I would not be able to be competitive. I would not be able to have an increase. His patient acceptance is far above the norm. He talks about his patients from a marketing perspective. He says they are my verbal walking billboards.
Absolutely. And I can
Right?
see it. I mean, to me, that is a no-brainer. Because I know what I would be doing it. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to have to find a dentist in Vegas that actually has your technology, right? Just so I can go down and
I can help you there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. So let's talk about the medical. Let's move on to that.
Yeah. So after we've been successful in the dental business, we entered the medical business, the medical segment. Not necessarily because of the addressable markets, epidural analgesia or analgesia. The epidural analgesia market in general is about $5 billion worth. If you take all services, equipment, pharmaca, medicaments. but more that we had a strong belief that we could solve the issues that are related with epidural analgesia. These procedures are high risk, are risky. Side effects, if the procedures go wrong, can be severe migraine, headache, real bad headaches, paralysis, temporary paralysis, or even permanent paralysis, and mortality. And in particular, in these procedures, the morbidity rate, so when these side effects occur, are 5%. That means that the needle that is advanced, again, the hypodermic syringe out of 1860, later positioned as the loss of resistance technique, you breach a membrane when you go too far with your advancement of the needle in the patient, you hit a membrane, you get leakage of cerebrospinal fluid. That gives all these side effects. We've been able to document and demonstrate in our clinical studies that these morbidity rates of 5% are reduced to 0%. Secondly, the training and education of residents, it takes about 2 years or 100 procedures to become, profound and proficient, I would say, with your subjective handheld procedure. We've been able to again, in clinical studies, to document and demonstrated that we can reduce 2 years to 2 days, 100 procedures to two procedures. And then, of course, the avoidance of cost of litigation. The cost of litigation on an average case can be everything between $500,000 to $3 million. And with our technology, you avoid that cost. So those three elements are of utmost importance. And also, of course,
can I ask a question? So if you reduce that, because I have to assume that the practitioner has got insurance, right? And if you could take that chance of having that kind of a lawsuit away 100%, couldn't you possibly get a better insurance rate from your insurer?
Yeah, I do not necessarily know if you get a better rate from the insurance. I mean, hospitals, over the whole range, their insurance coverage can be everything from $5 million, for example, to $75 million, right?
Right.
But again, I would always flip the picture here a little bit. I take a different approach. Even if you get insurance coverage, why would you give a bad name to your hospital in case you would have a litigation case? And of course, normally the majority of these cases are going to be settled. So you do not necessarily always hear it in public or hear the outcome. But why would you not only take that financial risk, but again, why not saying, and how many hospitals in the United States would say, our strategy is to improve women's healthcare. So why wouldn't you use then a technology that has been proven, clinically proven, and apply that to your hospital? You have a differentiation opportunity. You will get the family, when they are happy with the procedure during labor and delivery, there will be more patients coming into for elective surgery because the family members like the hospital. You avoid all these financial costs like litigation. More importantly, we have in an independent study, it was concluded that by using our technology, $504 per average patient stay, the average patient hospital stay, can be saved. A reduction of cost of $504. This was a study performed at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. In that hospital, you do 12,000 epidurals a year. So the potential saving of that hospital is $6 million a year. Now, that's always my value proposition that I would bring, because today you have to prove the clinical benefits, of course, but you also have to prove the financial benefits. So we have both. So for the hospital administration, there's a gigantic cost saving, a differentiation opportunity for the hospital, being the first pioneers in embracing that technology, as well as there's an immediate patient improvement in terms of safety, and in terms of pain relief, and in terms of time, procedure time. So it's a little bit the same story as in dentistry, right? Why wouldn't you use it? If you know today that this technology is available, use it instead of the mother and the husband when the mom is going into labor and delivery, first signing a bunch of papers, waivers, to make sure that there's no liability or whatsoever, and you go in this procedure with a full mindset that there are associated risks in these procedures. Why do you give that extra emotional burden to the mother that is going into a moment in her life that should be the most precious one for her, and that she always will remember in the years thereafter? You know, let us please help to increase that experience and make that a better one. That's all I ask for.
You know, at the beginning of this thing, you said better quality of life, right? And I don't know, from what I'm listening to, that's what we're talking about across the board, right? And that's why you're so passionate. That's why you're so passionate about it.
Yes.
And I can see that. It's just not. So that to me is, I mean, you have a special product that I think probably a lot of people just aren't familiar with, don't understand, right? But you're talking making people's experiences to very uncomfortable situations more comfortable.
Absolutely.
And that,
well,
what is that?
More predictable, more comfortable, more predictable, and increasing efficiencies for the institutions as well. You know, the vision that we have as a company is very simple. It's taking drug delivery from the 1900s to the 21st century, right? The mission of the company is also very simple. It's improving healthcare outcome at reduced cost. It's those two are important, and I strongly believe, you know, that we have done our homework. We have done all the clinical results, the clinical expertise, 9 peer-reviewed articles in well-known national and international anesthesia journals. And then, of course, you know, I don't know how to say it in English. I think we say the cherry on the pudding or something, or
cherry on top.
The cherry on the top. Thank you for helping me out here. You know, we also recently received from the American Medical Association, they issued the temporary CPT code, which is important. So
let's talk about what is that? What is the CPT? What is that?
Okay, the CPT code is in particular, if you, let's say it's important for the hospitals, but also I would say more important as well for the ASC, so the ambulatory surgery centers, as well as the private pain clinics. And we know, everybody knows that is active in the medical field, that, for example, if a particular procedure is used during the treatment of chronic back pain, and again, you have to go in the back with an epidural procedure. But if you use a specific technology, the clinician gets reimbursed, a reimbursement fee for covering his cost when he is using that technology. And the insurance company will then also cover that procedure for the patient. So in particular, one of the drivers of entering that market segment is having the availability of a CPT code. So we have been issued by the AMA a CPT code that it's a temporary code, becomes effective in January 2023. You have 5 years to change that from a temporary code into a permanent code, and you have to do some homework that we are currently doing in preparation for that, because then you have to get the reimbursement, and the insurance company, they have to acknowledge your procedure and they have to set a price. So now we are in that process to identify, if you use our technology, what the reimbursement price would be for the clinicians. But the beauty is, for us, it is an independent code, and it is a code entitled Epidural Guidance System. And it is a code in addition to existing codes. Now, it couldn't be more important for us, but also more beautiful for us, because even a smaller company like ours, we get the acknowledgement and the validation of the AMA that they believe that the technology that we are providing has found a place in in medical or in epidural analgesia in the year 2022. Now, of course, it's up to us to further expand on that. But those, people would say, okay, those are small things, but it's gigantic for us, for a company our size. It's beautiful because that is really for us one of the major growth drivers that I foresee for the coming years. Because labor and delivery is also important. But the company a year ago was only focusing on labor and delivery. But there you have to go to value assessment committees. Sales cycle might be 6 to 9 months. In the private pain clinic, with the support of that CPT code, it's a faster decision-making process. There's not a monetary budget. There's not a capital budget. The clinician, who is 9 out of 10 cases also partner of the institution, which is the private pain sector, he or she can take that decision, him or herself, in spending the money. And the sales cycle is 4 to 5 weeks instead of 6 to 9 months. Therefore, it's so important for us to enter that market. And even more so, that the size of that market is as a minimum 2.5 times the size of labor and delivery. Now, we are not, that's not the whole story, because also since a year ago, we have been able to enter the veterinary market, that we sent a release, I think a couple of weeks ago, where we are included in the education of residents to become a veterinary medicine doctor, right? We focusing on, with all due respect, the next generation of CRNAs and nurse anesthetists. Very pleased that we have been associated and that we are partnering with the University of Scranton, where we are now part of the curriculum of the education of CRNA. So in addition to that, we also have submitted to the FDA a widening of our indication from lumbar to the thoracic spine to widen our application in other areas within epidural analgesia. So if you compare where we are now versus a year ago, there has been made, and I'm not tapping myself on the shoulder, that's not my style, but the company has made a lot of progress in different areas. And, I strongly believe that one of the major catalysts is going to be that CPT code.
So when you're saying it becomes effective in January, so right now you've got the temporary, right? But it doesn't actually go into effect until January. That's when it actually kicks in and people can start submitting.
Absolutely, but that doesn't mean, I'm not a guy that is going to wait and see until January and, rolling my thumb and then hope that everything is going to be perfectly fine. We can already preparing now to be ready when we are officially able to use the temporary code in January, so that we can hit and run immediately. That's what I'm looking at. Okay. So my expectation is during the first quarter 2023 that we already will see the effect of having that CPT code contributing to our revenues on the medical field, in the medical segment, sorry.
Okay. All right. So I don't know. This seems to me like a pretty exciting story, right? You've got a catalyst that's right on the horizon. I want to just bring something up real quickly. The consumer is so powerful, right? I mean, and I don't think that the consumer understands just how powerful they can be. But if your dentist doesn't have this technology, I would be calling and asking, hey, do you have this? And if you don't, why not? And if are you planning to get it? I mean, that's me, right? Because
Yes.
now that I know it exists, I probably would not go to the dentist unless I knew they had this technology, right? Because it makes it more efficient and better. And if people understood or knew that this technology was out there, this is how you support a company. And actually, not only do you wind up getting better service from your dentist or your doctor and hospital, but you also have an opportunity to make money off of that because you can go buy the stock and support the company that way as well, right?
Absolutely.
Those two things, I mean, consumers can be a lot more powerful than they imagine. As a matter of fact, I think the retail investor could be the biggest hedge fund in the world if they were to pull together and understand, recognize good opportunities, good products, and then support them, right? I mean, it really could be. Reddit proved that there is strength in numbers. When you look at what happened with GameStop and AMC, right? Strength in numbers. Wrong companies to support, but strength in numbers. They proved it, right? And that's where retail investors should be focusing, is looking for companies like this, hidden gems, that improve the quality of life, that improve the patient experience. And, you know, ask your doctor, ask your dentist, do you have this? And if you don't, why don't you?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. All right. I want to take a look real quickly. Is there anything in here that, you know, the CompuFlow, is there anything in the deck that you want me to really kind of highlight?
No, I think, no, I know the presentation by heart, so I see the color coding, so I know what it's about. No, the joke aside, I think what is important also is to understand the trajectory and the development of where the company was in terms of the first business segment that we are in, right? Then we moved from dental, we moved into epidural analgesia, in labor and delivery, in pain, ASCs, the veterinary medicine, teaching institutions. It's all very important. But I think in particular also from for the investor community, and from that point of view, I want to give you the following message, because that's what we are currently doing as well, is wherever the hypodermic syringe is used, our technology could apply, right? So it's not only dentistry, it's not only epidural analgesia. We are not a dentist, a dental company. We're not an epidural company. Wherever the hypodermic syringe is used, our technology could apply, i.e., therefore, thoracic indications, intra-articular, so injections in the joints, I always say the shoulder, the elbow, right? Called intra-articular injection. We looked into cosmetic medicine, the injection of Botox, facial, or in neurology, injection of botulinum toxin in the larger muscles in the shoulder or in the neck or in the back. Peripheral nerve block, which is a market larger the size than epidural analgesia alone. We have been granted a patent in peripheral nerve block. So also my ambition and my vision is to grow the company, you know, faster and on a broader scale in other areas as well, which then of course requires, you know, partners in the not too distant future, I would say, that would be interested in developing those technologies, or would be interested in having access to that technology to defend their own market position. So, because the question always is, you know, what about our M&A activities? Now, that's an interesting topic, of course. If you look at the stock, and if I compare our company to other companies in the micro cap and the small cap, I think we are different. We have revenues. We have enough cash and cash equivalents. We don't have any long-term debts. We have sufficient capital to cover our operating costs. I would normally say our stock should trade at normally $3 or $3.50. If you take out the whole market environment and the dynamics that we are currently facing. So my message here is as well, I really believe that our stock is undervalued. I do believe that the potential is of the stock to be higher. And when we are at that level, that opens up then a completely different trajectory, because that will, potentially lead to joint ventures, strategic discussions with other type of companies, synergistic corporations, by either sharing sales force or doing things in a different way, or on the R&D level. So that's the reason why we don't exclude it, but it's a matter of timing. And for the time being, of course, the market is the market. And the only thing that I can do is to be high energetic, enthusiastic, and drive the company forward in the direction that I wanted the company to be.
So when we did our follow-up after the first time we did it, we had a meeting last week.
Yeah.
One of the things you told me right out of the chute was you have reduced costs, the cash
Yes.
burn, right, in anticipation of how long this current climate in the market lasts.
Yes.
Now, I look at what you've accomplished through a pandemic, which, doesn't happen very often. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever been through a pandemic before.
Mm-hmm.
And now we go into a war, right? I mean, you've got some things that are happening that are way beyond your control, right? You had the war has impacted a couple of markets for you that hurt the last quarter, right, in terms of cash flow or revenue. But these are temporary in nature, right? And things are going to, at some point, we're going to get back to normalization, I think, right? Whatever normalization looks like. But you're weathering the storm. You're identifying the issues that you need to identify that are important, and you're reducing the cash burn so that you can have, a longer runway.
Absolutely.
And you've got the big catalyst that's coming up in January.
Yes.
Right? So, all right. So you've got, I want to just go through right now. You've got, what shares outstanding? Is that fully diluted shares outstanding of 68.9 million?
Yes.
Okay. So fully diluted 68.9 million shares, which is anything under 100 million shares. I consider to be, a small float. All right, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a small amount of shares. So, and that's shares outstanding. You don't happen to know how many shares are in the float, do you? I can look that up, but
yeah, I think I have to look it up. I don't want to give
okay. I mean,
incorrect information.
You've got cash and cash equivalents of, is this 11 million?
Yes, by the end of the second quarter.
Okay, and 23.4% insider ownership.
Yes.
Okay. You got a huge, I mean, I didn't even think about Botox, but I'm looking at all these other epidural. Yeah, there's a ton of opportunity for you to grow market share, right? And partnerships,
absolutely.
JVs, all of that are absolutely opportunities. And I do believe that in this environment, I think one of the things that we're going to see, and I don't think it's going to be in that too long of a future here, where we're going to start seeing acquisitions and mergers. Because if you're a small micro cap company that is in need of raising capital, you're not sleeping right now, not in this environment, not in a rising interest rate and inflation and this. You're just not, it's not going to be a fun experience to raise capital, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe it makes sense for a company to either partner, merge with somebody that is in a good financial position without having to hurt your shareholders, right? Strengthen the company, strengthen the stock by merging with somebody else that is just as strong, that is in a stronger position. I mean, I think that we're going to start seeing that more and more, because two things have happened. With 14 months of the small micro cap names getting pounded, the companies that were thought that they could be bought at a valuation of 10 times whatever, they've come back to reality now and understand that they were living a pipe dream, right? So that's a good thing. And it's created a lot of opportunity. And if there is a company out there, I know for a fact that there are companies out there that have good cash positions, they're, you know, positive cash flow or profitable, and they're looking for opportunities. They're looking for good companies to merge.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like I said, you know, we don't exclude it. It's all a matter of timing, right? And again, you know, the only thing that I can do is continue to execute on the strategy that we have identified for the company. But you see it on the financial conference meetings or the investor meetings that we are at. I think I shared that with you. Normally there's, and I don't want to be disrespectful, not at all, but normally you have more, you know, 2 years ago or prior to COVID, there was more the company potential investor interaction, and I saw it with my own eyes. Now it was more companies looking at each other to understand what they were doing at these conferences. So if that is a sign to what you're saying, that you know, potential M&As become more under the loop or more in focus, that can well be the case. And we will see what the future will bring in this respect, right? It's all a matter about the timing, about our own results, about the stock, and identifying the right cooperation opportunities.
Okay, so let's talk about the stock from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm looking at the stocks for, you know, 2021 on, it's pretty obvious to even the untrained eye of a technical trader, right? I never used to believe in technicals, actually. I used to think it was voodoo because I didn't understand how looking at a chart was going to help me understand where a chart was going. I could never figure that out. Then I took a course 15 years ago, and now the first thing I look at is the chart, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that it's going from the upper left to the lower right. For instance, since what? February, March of 2021. Sure. But then again, that's, you can pull up just about any smaller microcap chart, they look the same. Okay. A lot of it has to do with sector, not necessarily company specific, right? What's interesting
May I just make a comment there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. It has to do with the sector, but also I would highlight 2 or 3 other happenings that occurred at that time. So March 2021, $4.80. I think that was the absolute high at that time. And then you see that decline. Definitely the sector, we saw a market trend. We saw that the micro cap and the small cap markets, they were hit, and perhaps even harder. You know, it was an initiation of the trend, right? Unfortunately. At the same time, you know, we had the exercise of the warrants and the options that is also, of course, affecting the stock. The flip side is that we get a cash injection of $3.7 million in the company. But I think a third element is important to keep in mind as well, is that at that time, we were part of the Russell 2000. And during 2021, we knew that by June 25th, 2021, already many months prior to that, that we would not longer belong to the Russell 2000 because there was a change in their, I call it the threshold to join the Russell at that time. So us not belonging longer to the Russell 2000 definitely had an impact on the stock development as well, because, you know, there was a higher activity in selling the stock. And then that in combination on top of, you know, what the market is doing has resulted in that steep decline. And again, for me, the only thing that I can continue doing is coming with a consistent stream of releases that shows that our technology is embraced, that there is a validation of our technology, that we take the right measures of the dental business internationally, and that's interested on its own, right? The dental business, when we post good quarter by quarter results, there was never a reaction by the stock, right? Because the majority of the investors invested in our company because of the future outlook, which is the medical business. So I just, please bear that in mind, I would say.
Look, I'm glad that you highlighted all of those things, right? I mean, but here's what's really interesting. From a technical standpoint, there's a couple of things going on here. You actually have what's called a reverse head and shoulders pattern, which is this is the head right here. This is a shoulder over here, and there's the other shoulder over here, right? So that's actually a bullish formation. All of this stuff probably going to sound, Greek to you, but I mean, here's the deal. I mean, if you can get past, what is that, $1.20,
yes,
$1.27, $1.30, right in that area, you can see how the price is kind of trading in a box since May,
yes,
right? You kind of bouncing between these areas. If you take, and the $1 number is always a big deal. Round numbers in general are always a big deal to people because you go from being a $1 stock to a $2 stock, right? I mean, it's a psychological thing. So you've got a couple of things that are happening. You've been kind of building out a base within that box over those last several months. You're kind of flattening out on the 50-day moving average, which is the yellow line. That's starting to flatten out. So you're building up this base, and I like to call that the launching pad, right? The bigger the launching pad, the higher the space, right? So you've got a couple of things that could happen. And if you think about the timing of when you have your code coming out, these things start to align. When you can align the fundamental with the technical setup, you say, okay, they've got a catalyst that's potentially coming in January, right? And you've got these other initiatives that you're working on. I like to align the two. So I look at this and say, what's my risk reward, right? In my mind, okay, if it comes down to 90 cents, now if you break the 90 cents, where's the next area of support? What is that? 50 cents. Okay.
Yeah.
I look at it like this. This is an interesting area to start building a position. I'm not telling anybody to go build a position. I'm telling people that this is how I view it. I think what's my risk reward at this current level? I could potentially lose what, $1, or not even what are we at? $1.04 right now?
Yeah.
So I can lose 50 cents if it goes down to the next level of support. Okay, what would I do at that level of support? I would add more shares and bring my dollar cost average down. Now what's my risk reward? I'm risking 50 cents if you go bankrupt, which I don't think you're going to go bankrupt with the catalyst that you have on the horizon. And I think, okay, now I bring my dollar cost average down, and where can I go? I can go back up and test that $4.80, right? Now my risk reward is quite substantial.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not telling anybody to buy the stock. What I'm saying is this is a good story with a good leader that has a clear vision and has a plan on how you're going to execute to get there. Right. Put the stock on your radar. MLSS is the ticker symbol. You guys are on the American Stock Exchange, right?
The New York Stock Exchange.
The New York Stock. Okay, so MLSS, put it on your radar. Start following the story. You can go to right there. You go to their website and sign up for email alerts so that you can get developments that are, as they happen, delivered right to your email, right? Pretty simple stuff. And I would imagine that if you have an investor that is curious about, wants specific questions answered, they can email you directly.
Call me. Yeah.
Or call you. Okay. I think it's a great story. I think it's a great opportunity. You know, when you have some developments, maybe in the near future, we'll have you back and kind of do an update.
Thank you so much, Tim.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming in and doing this. Hold on one second. I'm gonna turn this off. I didn't miss anything, did I?
No,
Okay.
I think we covered the whole range.
All right, let me turn this off. Hold on one second. Hey, all you stock market junkies. Thanks for tuning in to yet another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Trading. Today we had Milestone Scientific, ticker symbol MLSS, Arjan Haverhals, CEO. Hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, why not give us a follow? Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Trading wishes you the very best of success.